I'm Callie and this is Kapowski Reads. It was my birthday yesterday and as a treat to myself, I take a week of annual leave so that I can have a week off as my gift to myself, from myself. For my birthday TBR, I decided to do a birthday bingo and read books according to set prompts. At this moment in time, I have ticked off 14 boxes, which is pretty amazing. So I've only got 10 left to go. This week I'm going to try to tick off as many as I can. I did a little vlog a couple of weeks ago, so that's what I'm doing this week and I hope you enjoy it. Guys, if you can hear any purring, my neighbour's cat is currently asleep on my bed and this is my bed. He's purring away like the happiest little chap there ever was, so that might get picked up. So the prompt that I am hoping to tick off today is also by author. So I decided to pick up This Strange Way of Dying by Silvia Moreno Garcia. I only discovered this author myself last year. I think it was the start of 2021. I have since read 4 books by this author and they've all been, you know, high 4, 5-star reads. So I kind of feel like if I pick up a book by Silvia Moreno Garcia, I'm gonna enjoy it. And this is a short story collection. I always say I'm not one for short stories, and then every so often I pick up a short story collection and I think it's amazing. I'm about a third of the way through and I'm absolutely loving it so far. My favourite story at this moment in time is The Scorpion House, and I would quite like an entire Netflix series about that short story, so if anybody has a way to make that happen, that would be smashing. My goal was to finish this book today, but my friend messaged me earlier and asked if I wanted to go to the seaside, and I did. So I've actually spent the majority of the day at Stonehaven walking around the harbour and eating ice cream. It's been a great day. I don't know if you can see, I have a little bit of sunburn because clearly I missed part of my hairline when I was putting on sun cream, but I had a great day. I haven't read as much as I'd planned, but you know, not starting my week of reading the best way, but kind of the best way because I had ice cream at the beach. Winner. All I have done today is basically read and play Super Mario Party, which I think is the mark of a Sunday well spent. I also finished reading This Strange Way of Dying this morning and I absolutely loved it. I can't say for certain, but it might be my favourite short story collection ever. There were no weak links in this collection. Every story was excellent and could have been a title story. And what I love about this author is that they draw so much inspiration from Mexican folklore, which is something that I absolutely, turns out I enjoy reading a great deal, but I don't actually know that much of. So whenever I read a book by Silvia Moreno Garcia, I just get such an amazing tale, and then I find that it's based on something else and yeah. I absolutely loved this collection. My favourite stories were Bed of Scorpions, The Cemetery Man, The Death Collector, and Shade of the Ceiba Tree? I've probably pronounced that wrong, but just picking one favourite story from this collection was absolutely impossible for me. I absolutely loved this, and Silvia Moreno Garcia continues to amaze me once again. This book was an amazing start to my reading week, or not week because it's Sunday, but my 7-day period that I'm vlogging, so excellent start there. I then moved on to another book, and because I was feeling a little bit behind because I spent most of yesterday at the seaside, I chose a smaller book, and I am having a reread of Going Solo by Roald Dahl. And it is a reread, but honestly, I read this book when I was in primary school. So I read it in the 90s. A long time has passed since then, and I don't really remember that much about what happened in it. Just that I had remembered that it did involve travel. So I have chosen this for two reasons. One, because it covers travel, but also because it was first published in 1986, which was the year that I was born. So this book counts for 2 prompts. And that will make me feel quite good with regards to my birthday bingo board. It is a very exciting book, and it's filled with lots of, fun stories of things that happened during his time away, including a woman being taken off in the mouth of a lion and lots of snakes, and yeah, it's quite exciting and I'm enjoying reading it. I'm gonna finish this evening. I finished Going Solo last night and I absolutely loved the last 2/3 of the book, which were all about Roald Dahl's experience during World War II when he was in the RAF. And it just, all of his stories were just a testament to how he basically survived through just luck, just absolute sheer damn luck. It was such a compelling read. I couldn't put it down. I just wanted to know what happened next. And I forgot that it was a memoir, and I know that he survived. I knew it. He went on to write loads of my favourite books as a child, so I knew he was going to be okay, but there was still that element of just danger. And yeah, so I really enjoyed it. The first third I didn't enjoy so much. There were some parts that sort of gave me, I can only really just say the ick, which isn't a real term, but the first third, I wasn't so interested in that. I do think I prefer the first autobiography from Roald Dahl, but I think that's just because I will never forget his dad's spoon for the egg that had the sort of knife on it. If anyone else has read that book, you'll know. And today I've already finished. I just had a short one. Kim Jung, born 1982, by Cho Nam-ju. This is one of the books that I wanted to read for my Reading A to Z from my TBR. And this is a piece of translated fiction because it was originally published and written in Korean and it's been translated into English. And I have wanted to read this book for a little while, but I put it off because I got told it would annoy me. And I know why. I know why my friends thought it would annoy me, because it did, but not in a bad way towards the author. It just annoyed me in a way that I think it was supposed to. So this book was all about Kim Jong, all about her life being a woman when she's faced with misogyny and oppression. And I know why my friends thought this would annoy me, because it did annoy me. The great unfairness of it all, the way that she was treated compared to her younger brother and the way that she was overlooked. It was utterly heartbreaking to see somebody just work so hard to get a qualification and experience and then just fail to get their dream job purely because they're a woman. And that was just so, I was enraged. But I think that is the intent of this book, to sort of raise awareness and open people's eyes to what is going on. The book also included facts and figures, so it wasn't just a contemporary novel with nothing to back it up. There is evidence in this book which backs up the experiences of the fictional protagonist. And I really enjoyed going through her life with her and the expectations that she faced during each period of her life. And I just find that absolutely fascinating. I was hooked. I mean, it is a short book, but I did read it in an afternoon. I couldn't put it down. I do love the way that everything linked back to what was happening at the beginning, and I just found it an utterly fascinating yet frustrating read. I haven't read anything else by this author before, so I'm gonna have a little look. I don't think this is a debut novel, or it doesn't say it's a debut novel. So there may be more books I can read by this author, which I'm very excited about. So that's day 3 and I'm now on 3 books. They are quite small, so I don't know if I'm going to get through a book a day for all the other days, but let's see. I'm not going to go and put on a t-shirt because I'm far too hot in this jumper. It's deceptively warm. So I got my hair did today. It's all swishy. I also read Hooked by A.C. Wise, and this was an arc. I am counting this as a fairy tale retelling because, as I'm sure you can guess from the title, it's Hook from Peter Pan. And I really wanted to read this because I hate Peter Pan. Not the... I don't hate the book Peter Pan, I hate the character of Peter Pan. So I always find myself maybe rooting a little bit for Captain Hook. Also, when I watched Hook as a child, the actor who played Captain Hook reminded me of my uncle, so I kind of was rooting for the bad guy. So for me, in this kind of villain POV novel, I was quite excited because he's always been a character that I know I'm not meant to like, but I have historically quite liked. So yeah, I was excited going into this. And this book takes place years after the events of Peter Pan. And Wendy is all grown up and she has a daughter who is now at university studying to be a doctor in the late 1930s, so you can tell how well that's going for her. And at this point, Hook, he's an old man as well, and Hook and Wendy actually have to work together because of a shared enemy. And that whole concept I really loved, because we all know the story about Captain Hook and Wendy Darling. So unlikely allies, I really enjoyed that, and I really enjoyed having Wendy's daughter play quite a key role in this tale. There were so many excellent topics that were covered in this book. We had grief, survivor's guilt, addiction, and regrets, really, of not telling people just how you feel. And I thoroughly enjoyed this book. I loved Hook. I knew I was going to love Hook, and I did. I loved his relationship with Samuel, the doctor of the ship. I I I thoroughly enjoyed the story, and it gave me such a new angle on a story that I already kind of knew, or at least a villain that I knew. It wasn't a villain origin story, which I do. I am a sucker for a villain origin story. It was more of a, I would argue it's more of a redemption story for Hook. And I also feel like not only was it a kind of redemption story, but I did get to learn about his origins too, which weren't overly relevant to the story, but they were an extra little nugget for me to enjoy. This was a standalone novel, but this author has already written another Peter Pan inspired book called Wendy Darling, which I haven't read. I do think that had I read that first and then read this, that would have been quite nice, because there were some events which I assume happened in Wendy Darling that were referenced in this book, and I didn't need to have read the previous book as it is a standalone, but I think it would have been quite nice, because there were some moments that characters were mentioned and I was like, who's that? I don't know who that is. How do I feel? So it would have been quite nice to sort of know how to feel rather than be told how to feel, if that makes sense. I did cry at this book. The last 3, maybe 4 chapters, I was crying. I didn't have any tissues and I didn't want to stop reading to go and get tissues, so I used my sock as a tissue, and I am not ashamed of that. because I didn't want to stop reading. Yep. I absolutely loved this book, and if you are into retellings or reimaginings, I would 100% recommend this, especially if you hate Peter Pan, because he doesn't get involved in this. He's mentioned, but there is no time for creepy Peter Pan, who goes and just steals children. I think that's why I didn't like him. There was a long time I was scared to sleep with my windows open because of Peter Pan. Did I mention I hate Peter Pan? Today's read was The City and the City by China Mieville, and this book has been on my TBR since 2019, so I'm gonna count 3 years sitting on that shelf as a TBR vet. So for the purposes of birthday bingo, this counts for both a TBR vet and an author with the same initials as myself, because my initials are CM. Kapowski is my skate name, was my skate name, I suppose. Not my real name. I was a bit confused about why this was on my TBR and on my shelf, because I thought it was a crime novel, which is not. I do like crime novels, as evidenced by my Agatha Christie shelf right here. But I like my crime novels to be more than just crime, and I think I had convinced myself that this was a police procedural book, and that's why I just kept putting it off and putting it off, and then eventually I may have forgotten about it. But this was so much more than that. When I read the blurb, I was like, oh, of course, like, this sounds amazing. The main premise of this book is that a murder has occurred, classic, and a body has been found, and the police are looking into it, and they find that the murder seems to have happened in the city that they can't see, because in this world there is a city and there is a almost overlapping other city that the residents of each place can't see each other. It feels like that is just through sheer willful ignorance, or just convincing themselves that there's nobody there. And the whole concept of that was just, I was so interested and intrigued by this premise, by the plot. I started reading this book this morning. I had an appointment in town, so I went for a coffee first, and then I got a phone call saying my appointment had been cancelled. I was raging about that because I was already in town, and then next thing I know, I read 100 pages of this book. So clearly I was so hooked right away. And yes, I know there is a TV tie-in on the front cover, which I don't like, but I had it on audio and I really liked being able to read along with the audiobook like a book on tape, like when I was a little kid. So that's why I have this version. And it's secondhand, so that's fine. There was absolutely nothing special about the detective in this. He was just your standard, I would say, just your standard police detective in a murder inquiry in fiction. But what made the book for me was the world, and there were conspiracy theories regarding the existence of both cities. It was just, I don't want to say mind-blowing, because that feels like I might be overselling it a bit, but my mind did feel blown. So this book just had the investigation going on, first of all in Batesville, where Theodore, the detective, lived, and then he has to go through basically some sort of customs to get to this other city where the crime actually happened. And it was just so odd and I love an odd book, and I love that this had elements of, there was just so much mystery and so much intrigue, and I did find myself just really getting all caught up in the excitement of it. When the reveal came, I kind of kicked myself a little bit because it was so obvious, but I was so enraptured by everything else that was going on that I missed all of the very obvious clues. Or maybe they weren't super obvious, but you know, hindsight is 2020, and I think I just missed them all because I was too busy trying to work out what was going on with the world. In this book there are conspiracy theories galore, and then Theodore, all the while looking into a murder inquiry, ends up sort of going down that rabbit hole of conspiracy, and it was just snowballing what should have just been a very, I don't want to say a straightforward murder inquiry, but you know, for police in crime novels probably would have been straightforward, but it just grew arms and legs and any other sort of limb. It was fantastic. I thoroughly enjoyed it. This happens every time I find myself reading a TBR vet. I should have read it ages ago because I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I have never read anything by China Miéville before, and I would like to read more of his work because this was excellent. And this is the 5th book that I've read during my week off, so not too bad for me. Today it is hotter than the sun, kind of. It's 23 degrees right now, which I know doesn't sound like a lot, but in the northeast of Scotland, it's not meant to be that hot up here. Our buildings just they absorb any heat that comes from outside. So it is uncomfortably warm, both inside and outside today. So naturally, I spent the day indoors in the shade, reading in my happy place. I finished Ready Player One by Ernest Cline, which I actually started reading this book a few days ago. I have been reading this as sort of my bedtime book, and then I finished it today. I feel like this book is really well known, and I'm one of the last people to read it. There's a lot of shadows on my face. We're gonna go with that. For anyone who doesn't know what this book is about, it's set in the future, and the creator of the basically virtual reality system that the entire world is using for, it feels like everything, has passed away, leaving no heirs, and sets up a pretty cool kind of quest, and whoever completes the quest wins the estate. So very Charlie and the Chocolate Factory style, with less murder. And I must admit that I had seen this book doing the rounds on social media, which is the reason why I picked it up, and I didn't love it. I thought I would. It had so many nostalgic references, which usually is my thing, but I feel like there were so many moments of nostalgia that it felt like there was more nostalgia than actual story. Reading this book reminded me so much of when I was 18 and I was in my first ever student halls. My flatmates were all boys, and they were all at least a year older than me, and they were very almost exclusionary with their references. So whenever I would know a film or album that they were talking about, they would just list more until they'd found more and more obscure references I maybe didn't know. And that just sort of, this book kind of reminded me of that, where it was like, oh, if you're a real geek, you'll get all of these references. I'm not a geek. I've never claimed to be a geek. So I didn't get all the references. I hated the main character. He was basically a Mary Sue, where he was excellent at everything he did. And that is one of the most boring things that a character can be. He also was told that there was romance in this book. There is no romance in this book. What is in this book is obsession and pretty much stalking. That's not romance. There's nothing romantic about that. And I didn't. I think there are people that will absolutely love this book, and I'm not one of those people. I originally had planned to read this, and then my plan was to read Ready Player 2, which would then finish off the sequel, and I would tick and complete all of my birthday bingo board with this vlog. But I can't do it. I can't bring myself to read another continuation of this series. I just hated the main character so much. He was so, all the characters were very one-dimensional. So I say I hated Wade. I didn't really know him to base that opinion. I'm just saying I hated him because I found him to be creepy and stalkery towards women. So there's that. But there were other characters in this book as well that I didn't feel like I got a chance to know any of them. I didn't get any more of their personality other than good at gaming or can quote Monty Python. Well done. Is that your whole personality? Because that's not a personality. There has to be more. There were moments of like peril as well, and I just found myself, I didn't care. And I have said this before and I'll say it again. I don't need to love the characters to enjoy a book. But if you're going to put the characters in peril and expect me to feel one way or the other, then I need to like them. I need to be rooting for them. And the only reason I found myself rooting for Wade was because he was against the big bad of the corporation. And of course, I'm rooting against the corporation. But if his competition was another person, then I wouldn't really have cared who won. So I don't know, I just felt a bit disappointed because I had heard so many good things about this book, but yeah, it wasn't for me, and now I feel a bit sad. I think I'm going to go outside and treat myself to a walk now that it's finally dropped to 19 degrees. It's too hot. I hate summer. So today is my last day of annual leave. I have the weekend, but I have plans for the weekend. So this is the last day that I have been able to just devote to reading. And I finished one more book, which was Beasts in Velvet by Kim Newman, aka Jack Yeovil. And this is the third book in the Vampire Genevieve series, which I am hoping to finish this year. If I'm being completely honest, I'm hoping to finish it this month because I have already started the final book, which is a selection of short stories, and I've read the first one. Even though this is book 3 in a series, so far I feel like the books can be read as standalones. And in this book, there is a murderer on the loose in the Age of Sigmar world before Age of Sigmar, if that makes any sense. Easiest way to describe this world is that it's a kind of medieval world where everybody seems to just fight a lot. Lots of killing and vampires and dwarves and loads of cool things. And it was just a really enjoyable, epic kind of world. And in this book, like I said, there's a murderer on the loose and they are just killing women. So very Jack the Ripper. And there is a woman who can sort of, she has these powers that she was born with, she does say she's not quite a witch, but she ends up working with the guards. She ends up working with the investigators to find out who this beast is that is killing all of these women and causing fear among all of the citizens. And I just absolutely loved this book. I really enjoyed just the intrigue and I was kept guessing all the way to the end. And even at the end, I was still not 100% sure who did it, and then it was made clear. I really enjoyed that. The only thing that disappointed me about this book was that with the Vampire Genevieve series, you may be expecting the Vampire Genevieve to feature in all of the books quite heavily, perhaps as a main character, but that wasn't quite the case. She was mentioned, she had a little cameo in this book, but I kept sort of waiting for Genevieve to pop up again, and she didn't. So I think that while this is a series, it's more of a collection, really. There are characters in this book that were in the previous book, which again was a short story collection that did feature Genevieve. But again, you don't need to have read that to be able to follow along with this book. I thoroughly enjoyed this. It was full of intrigue, mystery, and misdirection, all the while a revolution was bubbling and there was a creepy fog. I always say I'm not one for horror, and then I find myself reading this collection of books which are technically horror. So this is acceptable horror for people who are scared of things like me. I'm so excited to complete the series. I probably won't do it this weekend because my parents are coming up to visit and I have no idea what we're gonna do, but it kind of feels like I can't sit and read while I have visitors, so there's that. That is my 7th book. So this last 7 days I've read 7 books, which is pretty cool. I've also done some crafting and very little housework, so probably need to catch up on that too. But it's been such a fun week, and I do have 1 slot left on my birthday bingo board because I just haven't finished a series this week, but that's okay because there's loads of time left before the end of the month, so I have absolutely no doubt that I'm gonna get my prize. I've had the most fun week. I read 7 books, which is pretty cool, and I think that was the most fun way I could spend my week off because it has been far too hot to go outside and do anything. Thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this vlog. I feel I've been very rambly. If you've read any of these books or anything excellent recently, do let me know. Thanks for watching. Bye!